The hard fact of life is that improvement is difficult, and that applies to cubing as well, which is why 99.8% of cubers never make it to the coveted sub-7 average. In fact, only around 400 people in the entire world have ever done so, and in this video, I will give you a complete 3x3 improvement blueprint for anyone of any skill level, which will guide you through the exact strategy I took to go from not knowing how to solve a cube to having a sub-7 official 3x3 average in under a year. This video will guide you through exactly how to break each time barrier from sub 2 minutes all the way down to sub 7 seconds. My name is Jeffrey, and here's exactly how to go fast, quick. So sub 2 is not really that big of a challenge, so I won't be spending too much time on it. All you really have to do is learn how to solve the cube and then practice. The best method for beginners is fittingly called the beginner's method. This is where you first solve a daisy surrounding the yellow center, and then solve the white cross. After that, you build up 2 layers, piece by piece, around the cube. Then you orient the edges, permute the edges, permute the corners, and then orient the corners. That seems like a lot, and yes, it will be difficult to learn, but there are great resources that teach it in a comprehensive way that I'll link down in the description. My seat just, what the heck? If you're really struggling with getting sub 2 minutes, I recommend trying to use your fingers to do some of the moves instead of using your wrists. This will become much more important down the road, so it's good to get in the habit of doing that early. Around this point, it is vital for you to start learning to use your fingers to solve the cube instead of using your wrists. These are called finger tricks, and if done correctly, can literally turn a 30-second solver into a 7-second solver. Here are a couple important finger tricks and some tips. So before you even get to turning, you need to be holding the cube in the right way to ensure stability. You should have your 2 thumbs on the front, your index, middle, and ring fingers on the back, and both your pinkies on the bottom to help support the cube. Usually only one of those pinkies will be there. Let me explain. This grip is just the default grip and is purely for stability. When you are turning, you can break this grip slightly for easier turns. Just make sure to stay stable. The most common way that you'll break this grip is re-gripping your right and left hands up or down. You literally just pick up your hand, rotate it 90 degrees, and then put it back on. There you go. So now that you have your grip, we can start turning. You will still use your wrist to turn the right and left faces, and that will not change as you get faster. It is the fastest way of turning these faces. You need to use your index fingers to turn the top face, like so. Use your thumbs to turn the front face. And in some cases, you can also use your index fingers to turn the front face like this. But that is more advanced, and you probably will not use that. Other than that, just get a bit more familiar with the beginner's method. I recommend practicing as much as possible, and you should be sub 1 relatively quickly. Also, you should start learning some shortcuts, which I will cover now. So there's a big one that will save you a lot of time in the first layer. When you have a corner that you want to insert, but the white is facing up, instead of doing 3 right algorithms, you could just do 2, where in the first one, instead of doing up, over, down, back, you do up, over, down, back, and then a normal one. That way you can insert it much faster than if you just did 3 right algorithms. Also, start learning how to solve the cross directly onto the bottom without the added step of the daisy. This will save a lot of time in the long run, even if it makes you slightly slower at the moment. That is pretty much all you need to know to get sub 1, and that can even take you around sub 50. Sub 30 is where things get more or less difficult, because this is where you need to start learning the big beast. The CFOP method, also known as the Friedrich method, also known as the CFOP method, also known as that one stupid method that for some reason is really complicated, but I have to learn it because everybody is telling me to and the peer pressure is just too much. The CFOP method is in essence a more complicated version of the beginner's method, in that you still solve the cross, then the first 2 layers, then the last layer in this layer by layer method sequence. But after you get more advanced, it goes further and further away from the beginner's method. Here's a quick rundown. First, you solve the cross like normal. Then instead of solving the first 2 layers 1 layer at a time, you instead find 2 corresponding pieces, pair them up, and then put them in their slot like this. Repeat that 3 more times, and the first 2 layers are done. After that, you make the entire top face yellow using one algorithm called OLL, which is short for orientation of the last layer, and then move all the pieces in the last layer around in one algorithm called PLL, or permutation of the last layer. One problem is OLL and PLL will add up to 78 algorithms. That's a lot. Yeah. Good thing is, with every problem comes a solution, and there is a solution to this because there's a problem. So what's the solution? Well, instead of solving the last layer in 2 algorithms called 2-like last layer, you can solve it in 4 algorithms, which is more inefficient but doesn't cost that much time, and reduces the amount of algorithms to 16. I'll have some in-depth tutorials for the CFOP method in the description below. Remember that the CFOP method is very difficult and it will take a lot of practice. At first, you will be slower than you are with the beginner's method, but that is completely normal and expected. Just push through and you will get there. From sub 20 and beyond, it will be a lot more difficult to improve. Remember, improvement is not a linear path. For example, it will take me much longer to go from 10 seconds to 9 seconds than it did to go from 30 seconds to 29 seconds. It took me around a week with the CFOP method to go from 50 seconds to 20 seconds, but it took me almost a year to go from 20 seconds to sub 10 seconds. The tips from the previous section should be able to get you around 25 seconds. Around sub 20 seconds or something like that, it's recommended that you start tracking your splits, meaning how long it takes for you to do each step of the CFOP method so that you can improve on your weaknesses. To get a sub 20 second solve, these are the splits that I recommend. 3 seconds for cross, 10 seconds for F2L, and the remaining 7 seconds for last layer. That will give you an exactly 20 second solve, and you just have to improve a little bit on one of those steps to get a sub 20 solve. Now that you know how long each step should take into account how long each of your steps take and improve on your weaknesses. Around this time, I recommend learning full PLL if you were just using 2-like PLL before. Yes, this is a daunting task, but it will really benefit you and drop your time by a couple of seconds. You don't have to learn full LL, but feel free to do so. It causes no harm, except maybe a couple weeks of pain and suffering. That's pretty much everything you need to know to get sub 20. It's not going to be easy though. You still need to practice a lot, and I mean a lot. To get sub 15, you need to start learning advanced F2L. This is where you use one algorithm to solve each F2L pair instead of solving them intuitively. At first, this might seem like a very daunting task because there are a lot of algorithms to learn, but you soon realize that these algorithms are also very intuitive. Instead of learning these algorithms from an algorithm sheet or something, I recommend watching example solves and picking up F2L tricks that way. Also, around this time, you should begin doing some look ahead. Basically, this is where you look ahead to the next pair you're doing so you don't pause. You do compromise some turn speed though, but that is okay because if you do the maths, you will realize that you only need to turn at 6 turns per second to get a sub 10 solve. As time goes on, look ahead will become much easier and more natural, so you can naturally turn faster. The way I recommend learning look ahead is first turn very slowly and then practice look ahead at that turn speed until you have it down, and then turn up the speed a little bit, and so on and so forth until you can turn at your max DPS. Sub 12 is a very difficult time barrier to break because there's almost nothing you need to learn to get faster. Almost. There is one thing though, and you'll probably hate me for the next couple of weeks, and that is learning full OLL. All 57 algorithms. In all seriousness though, I do enjoy learning algorithms personally, and that is with the help of one big thing: chunking. Let me explain. So imagine you have this algorithm. R, U, R prime, U prime, R prime, F, R, F prime. There are a couple ways you could go about learning this. You could just brute force it into your thick skull. Or you could be smart for once in your life and notice that this algorithm is just right algorithm and then sledgehammer. You can do this with basically any algorithm, chunking it down into smaller, more digestible pieces. Other than that, just focus on F2L look ahead and practice a lot. You will get there. To get sub 10, there are a couple things you need to do. First, you have to now know full OLL and PLL. You just have to. Now, sub 10 is where it becomes more difficult to help you because everyone has their own problems that they need to work on. But I can give some general tips. If you really need help improving to sub 10 though, I do offer coaching services, and you can email me at the email in the description below to find out more. So the splits for sub 10s are as follows: 1 second for cross, 5 seconds for F2L, and the remaining 4 seconds for last layer, give or take. As I said, each person will have their strengths and their weaknesses, so no one will have the same exact optimal splits, but these are generally the ones that you want to aim for. Here's some tips for improving each split. For cross, the main thing you want to focus on is inserting more than one cross piece at a time. For example, here, instead of inserting this cross piece with an R prime, and then inserting this cross piece in 3 moves like this, you can do U prime first, and then insert these 2 in at the same time. Little things like this can really help your cross efficiency, which, if you didn't know, you should be solving in 8 moves or less every single time. For F12, the main thing you want to work on is look ahead. Again, it is okay to compromise some turn speed for look ahead, because look ahead is much more important in the long run. And as you get better, you'll naturally be able to turn faster while still looking ahead. For the last layer, basically the only thing you can do to improve is time attacks. Time attacks are basically where you do all your algorithm in one sitting, trying to do as fast as possible. This really helps with the TPS on the last layer. That's all you really need to know to get sub 10, but the main thing you have to do is practice. Even if you have all the knowledge in the entire world, you still need to practice to be good at utilizing that knowledge. Sub 10 is not going to be easy, but you can do it. Improving beyond sub 10 is very difficult, mainly because there are no resources telling you exactly what to do or how to improve. But that's because there's no one way. You could go the Timon route and focus on learning a truckload of algorithms like ZBLS and ZBLL, or you could go the Yihang route and learn nothing new but focus on F12 planning, efficiency, and TPS. Both ways work just fine because, Yihang, Timon. Regardless, there's one constant that stays the same: practice, practice, practice. You need to put in the time to get faster, and you might go months without seeing any progress at all, but as long as you push through, you will get there. There's one big mistake I made that held me back a ton though, and that is the way I practice. I always just did solve after mindless solve, and that is terrible. The only thing that does is reinforce what I already have, which is good in some cases, but that includes reinforcing my bad habits. So instead of doing mindless solves, take some time each day to do some intentional targeted practice. That'd be slow solves, casual solves, or time attacks. Alright, and that is basically all you need to know to impress your friends and make your family proud. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comment section below. If you found value in this video, it would mean the world to me if you could subscribe and drop a like. Oh, I forgot to do the thing. 70% of people watching right now are not subscribed, so make sure to subscribe! Woo!